Never did I envision myself in an empty dining room, paint rollers at the ready, pondering if a bold color could alter the very spirit of this house and the feelings it evoked in me. The once vibrant space, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses during family dinners, now stood empty and forlorn. The silence wrapped around the space, not just the lack of sound, but a tangible heaviness, suffocating and relentless. The idea of repainting came to me in a flash, a sudden impulse to reclaim the house from the memories that seemed to cling to every corner and crevice. My late husband, Paul, held this room dear to his heart. It was the venue where we celebrated birthdays, toasted to anniversaries, and gathered with loved ones. Now, 5 years after his passing, it felt like a tomb, a monument to a life I couldn't seem to escape. At that moment, Ethan stepped into the scene. True to his routine, contemplating a new hue for the dining room, he had asked a week earlier, his expression both teasing and kind, "Are you planning to tackle that on your own?" Ethan had a remarkable talent for making me feel seen, even during times when I longed to fade into the background. On the 28th, he radiated a self-assuredness that effortlessly merged the natural with the refined. He was the son of Paul from his first marriage, yet as time went on, he became a steadfast presence in my life. After Paul's passing, Ethan emerged as my unwavering pillar, helping with home repairs, making phone calls, and ensuring I didn't fall into the abyss of my own solitude. "I can handle it effectively," I had replied, but the truth was, I wasn't sure I had the ability to do it. He raised an eyebrow, a wider smile unfolding on his lips. He announced that he would come by Saturday, his tone suggesting that the matter was settled without room for discussion. Saturday arrived, unveiling the charm of clear blue skies and the soft touch of warm sunlight. Ethan walked in just as I was struggling to carry the paint cans into the dining room, his calm confidence filling the room effortlessly. "Did I not request that you wait for me?" He leaned against the doorway with a playful demeanor, a mischievous sparkle dancing in his eye. I glanced upward, my heart racing unexpectedly at the sight of him. His shirt carried a whisper of wrinkles, his jeans had certainly experienced better moments, yet there was an unmistakable essence in the way he carried himself that continually caught me off guard. "I thought it would be wise to get a head start," I noted, striving to keep a bright disposition. He acknowledged with a nod, stepping into the room and grasping a paint can. "At this point, it seems you've created quite a chaotic scene on the floor." An exasperated sigh escaped me, but a smile tugged at my lips, breaking through my attempts to hold it back. "You are completely insufferable." "Do you know about that?" "So I've been told," he remarked with a playful grin, placing the can down and reaching for a roller. In the first hour, we toiled in a comfortable silence, the steady swish of paint rollers echoing through the space. I concentrated on the task before me, resolute in my effort to disregard the way Ethan's presence appeared to alter the atmosphere surrounding me, yet one could hardly overlook his presence. The fabric of his shirt adhered to his back as he extended his arms to grasp the uppermost edges of the wall. His laughter echoed through the room as he found me grappling with a stubborn can of paint. "You're going to hurt yourself," he said, his voice soft as he carefully took the can from my hands. "I'm not as helpless as you think," I replied, though my breath caught ever so slightly when his fingers grazed against mine. "I never said you were," he murmured, his voice now softer. It was a fleeting moment, trivial to the outside world, yet it remained etched in memory. After years of stillness, a sensation began to awaken within me, a gentle warmth, a magnetic pull, an elusive notion that escaped my grasp. As the afternoon progressed, the dialogue began to unfold with greater ease. We laughed about my dubious selection of paint hue. "Sunflower yellow," he had said with a laugh, reminiscing about Paul. Ethan shared tales that were new to my ears, fragments from his youth that revealed a deeper understanding of the man I cherished. "Dad used to bring me in here after school," Ethan said, his voice laced with a wistful longing. "He would insist that I sit at that table, diligently working on my homework as he prepared dinner. He often remarked that this room was the very heart of the house." I inclined my head, a constriction forming in my throat. "He cherished this place," I murmured gently, "and so do you," Ethan responded, his gaze locking with mine. In that moment, his gaze held a certain intensity, unwavering and resolute, as if he were perceiving not merely the woman I had become, but also the essence of the person I once was. Before the trials of life had taken their toll, the fleeting moment slipped away, yet its imprint lingered on. As we wrapped up for the day, the room bore the marks of our labor, half-painted, with sunlight spilling in and weaving golden streaks across the floor. Ethan stood at the center of the room, surveying our efforts with a contented smile. "Not bad for a day's work," he remarked, glancing my way. "Not bad at all," concurred, though my attention drifted elsewhere, far from the walls. As he gathered the paint supplies, I found myself observing him, my heart constricting with a swirl of feelings I wasn't prepared to identify. For years, this house had seemed like a crypt, a repository of memories yet stripped of vitality. Yet, with Ethan's presence, everything seemed transformed, infused with warmth and a sense of levity. As I lingered in the doorway, the subtle aroma of paint wafting around me, I found myself contemplating whether this endeavor extended beyond merely revamping the dining room. It might have been relevant to me too. With the first light of dawn, I awoke earlier than I typically would. I found my mind drawn to the challenge that awaited me. The dining room, partially adorned with fresh paint, seemed to hold its breath, as the lingering aroma danced through the air. It had been years since I had delved into something like this, and a part of me relished the escape. Ethan strolled in not long after breakfast, expertly balancing a tray of coffees while sporting a grin that teetered on the edge of smugness. He set the cups down on the counter, a sly smile playing on his lips. "He suggested that you could use a bit of fuel." "I could have managed," I replied, though the sight of him leaning effortlessly against the kitchen island sent a rush of warmth through me that I was hesitant to admit. "You're welcome," he teased, extending his hand to pass me one of the cups. "Thank you," I whispered, sipping my drink to avoid locking eyes with him. As we re-entered the dining room, we found ourselves slipping into a familiar rhythm. Sunlight streamed through the windows, wrapping the room in a cozy embrace as we worked side by side. Ethan climbed the towering wall with an air of assurance, standing tall on the ladder, while I focused my efforts on the trim near the ground. "Mind your step," he chuckled as I stumbled into the bucket of paint, my knee meeting the can in an unexpected encounter. "Be careful up there," I shot back, stealing a quick look upward as he extended his hand to grab a corner. The ladder wobbled just a bit, sending a thrill of anxiety through my chest. "Ethan," I called out, dropping my brush as I rushed over to him. "I'm fine," he reassured me, descending with a smile that illuminated his features. "Your worries appear to linger significantly in your thoughts." "It's necessary," I whispered, taking hold of my brush again. As the hours slipped by, I couldn't help but notice how my focus repeatedly drifted back to him. The fabric clung to his skin as he worked diligently, and his laughter echoed through the room, infusing it with vitality once again. In a brief instant, he turned abruptly, capturing my attention in an unforeseen meeting. "What is this?" he asked, a glimmer of amusement playing in his raised brow. "Nothing," I responded quickly, a warmth rising to my cheeks. He chose not to pursue the matter any further. Still, the knowing smile he offered me remained, shrouding my focus in a haze. We took a moment to pause for lunch, finding a comfortable spot on the floor where we could enjoy our sandwiches and chilled beverages. The conversation unfolded smoothly, providing a welcome relief from the tension that seemed to grow with each step we took closer together. He waved his hand toward the walls encircling us as he spoke. "What does sunflower yellow represent?" A soft chuckle escaped my lips, and a bemused smile spread across my face as I shook my head in disbelief. "I'm uncertain, yet it appeared to be quite bright, maybe." A soft smile graced his lips, a tender warmth radiating from his expression. "It suits you well," he commented. The comment caught me off guard, rendering me briefly speechless. "I doubt anyone has ever called me cheerful," I finally confessed, my tone now gentler. "They ought to," he responded, his eyes steady and resolute. After our lunch, we redirected our attention to the work at hand. Time slipped by as the space slowly transformed. The previously dull, lifeless walls transformed into a vibrant explosion of colors. As I crouched to navigate a particularly tricky corner, I sensed him behind me, his presence both warm and solid. He leaned in, his hand brushing against the trim to steady it while I applied the paint. His hand grazed mine for a fleeting moment, and the touch ignited a spark within me. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice wavering. "Anytime," he said, his tone buoyant. Yet I noticed a fleeting shadow of something more profound in his gaze. As the afternoon waned, we found ourselves on the brink of completion, the room radiating with a fresh vibrancy. Ethan rested against the ladder, his expression one of contentment as he surveyed our efforts. "Not bad," he remarked, glancing in my direction. "It seems you may possess a natural talent for this endeavor," I cautioned, a smile creeping at the edges of my lips despite my better judgment. As he made his way down, he hesitated for a brief moment, his foot catching on the last rung. I reached out instinctively, my fingers wrapping around his arm to offer my support. "Are you okay?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Truly," he observed, his tone now gentle. We found ourselves in close proximity, uncomfortably so, as the warmth of his skin seeped through the fabric of his shirt, harmonizing with the steady rhythm of his breath. Our gazes intertwined, and in that brief moment, it felt as though time stood still. I pulled back quickly, my hands falling to my sides as I created space between us. "Exercise caution," I cautioned, my voice sharper than I intended. He always replied, but there was a subtle undertone that slipped past my comprehension. The rest of the afternoon drifted away in a blur, the weight of that moment lingering distinctly in the space between us. Every passing glance, every accidental touch sent ripples through my being, awakening a restlessness I was hesitant to confront. That evening, sitting on the porch with a glass of wine, I reflected on the day's events, each moment replaying vividly in my mind. Ethan's laughter resonated around us, his eyes holding mine with a fervor that sent delightful chills coursing through me, as the warmth of his hand grazed my own, kindling a connection that felt electric. Everything felt like a tidal wave, crashing down all at once. Yet, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, I couldn't help but acknowledge the emotions he awakened within me. After years of solitude, the house finally appeared to thrum with a whisper of warmth, and for the first time in ages, I discovered that I was not alone in my experience. The next morning, the dining room was awash in sunlight, the newly painted yellow walls emanating a cozy warmth. I lingered at the threshold, my coffee mug held gently in my grasp, absorbing the results of the effort that Ethan and I had woven together. The atmosphere shimmered with an unexpected glow, reminiscent of a different abode, a unique version of who I am. "Not bad," Ethan remarked, catching me off guard as he entered with his usual confidence and poise. He held a small tray decorated with bagels and fruit, a gesture that perfectly balanced being overly thoughtful and distinctly his own. "If you continue to bring food over, I may begin to anticipate it," I playfully teased, trying to keep the mood light. "We can't have you fainting in the middle of this project," he remarked, setting the tray down delicately on the dining room table. Our dialogue flowed with a lightness, yet beneath the surface, an unvoiced tension remained, a quiet acknowledgement of the closeness we had experienced just the day before. As we enjoyed our breakfast, our conversation turned to the various house projects that still needed our focus. The playful exchange provided a delightful escape, but now and then our eyes would meet, sparking that unmistakable flutter in my heart. Afterward, Ethan suggested tackling the bookshelf in the study, which had been leaning precariously to one side for several months. "Could it be that we should take a moment to reflect?" I asked, playfully teasing. "Fixing up this house is my refuge," he said with a grin. "Believe me, you'll appreciate it when it holds firm under the weight of all those books." Throughout the study, our collaboration was effortless. The quiet surrounding us felt both soothing and thick with an unexpressed intensity. I handed him the tools as he carefully adjusted the shelves, noting the quiet resolve he brought to each task he engaged in. Ethan's words sliced through the silence, a sudden reminder of how much his father had loathed this room. My gaze lifted, astonished. "Is that so? What is the reason behind this?" He shrugged, a faint smile dancing at the corners of his mouth. He often remarked on the chaos, yet I believe his true aversion lay in his inability to remain still long enough to immerse himself in a book. A gentle laugh escaped my lips, lightening the burden that rested within me. That resonates with his character. Ethan cast a fleeting look in my direction, his demeanor shifting to one of warmth. It seems you feel his absence deeply, don't you? The inquiry was straightforward, yet it resonated deeply. I inclined my head, a constriction forming in my throat. Each day, I confessed. We paused, the atmosphere thick with our collective sorrow. Then Ethan placed the screwdriver aside and turned to confront me completely. He often spoke of you, he said. He admired you deeply, feeling incredibly fortunate to have you in his life. My eyes fluttered, taken aback by the depth of feeling in his tone. Did he really? Ethan nodded, his gaze steady and resolute. He held you dear, Meredith, more than anything in the world. The sincerity of his words stirred deep emotions within me, bringing tears to the edge of my eyes as I turned away, my hands trembling just a bit. I expressed my gratitude softly, thank you for sharing that with me. You truly deserve to hear it, he whispered softly. We labored in a quiet ambience from that point onward. Yet the moment lingered, a delicate connection forming from our shared vulnerability. Upon finishing our task, Ethan took a step back, his eyes roaming across the sturdy bookshelf, a contented smile lighting up his features. Perfect, he said, nonchalantly running his hands over his jeans. Thank you for your assistance, I noted, though my tone carried a weight I hadn't intended. Always, he replied, his gaze locking onto mine for a moment that lingered just a heartbeat longer than needed. As the evening progressed, the sky morphed into a stunning display of orange and pink shades, inviting us to take our seats on the back porch, wine glasses in hand. The crisp air surrounded us, as the steady chirping of crickets broke the silence that lingered in the space between us. Ethan settled back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the far-off horizon. Have you ever contemplated what the future holds? He asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Could you please elaborate on your meaning? He turned to face me and asked, what does the future hold for you? I halted, the weight of the question surrounding me. I confessed, filled with uncertainty, and for what felt like an eternity, it seemed as though there was no continuation, as if everything ceased to exist when Paul arrived. I hesitated, the words constricting my throat, but now, he exerted a gentle force. Taking a deep breath, I allowed my gaze to drift towards the glass held gently in my hand. At this moment, I am reflecting on the potential that lies before me. I whispered gently, the unfiltered reality of the moment constricting within me, and I felt Ethan's steady gaze on me, his presence a constant source of support. Happiness is something you truly deserve, Meredith. He spoke, his voice a gentle but determined murmur. In that moment, I looked at him, the sincerity in his expression nearly shattering me. It feels like ages since I last contemplated the importance of that. I admitted, maybe it's time to start. He spoke with a calm certainty, and the grace of his words, along with the unwavering faith that supported them, sent a shiver through my soul. As the evening progressed, our conversation became increasingly lively, while the weight of our discoveries lingered in the air. In a fleeting moment, Ethan reached for the bottle of wine, aiming to refill our glasses, his fingers softly brushing against mine. The moment was brief, yet it surged within me like a current, leaving my breath suspended in my throat. I cast a fleeting look in his direction, my heart racing as I observed the gentle shift in his gaze, his focus entirely on me. Meredith, he whispered, my name hanging in the air between us. Words slipped through my fingers, and I turned my eyes away, my grip on the stem of my glass tightening with each passing moment. The stillness lingered, thick with the weight of things left unsaid. At last, Ethan reclined, dispelling the tension with a soft chuckle. Apologies, he murmured, raking his fingers through his hair. I never intended to create any awkwardness. I didn't. I replied hastily, though my voice revealed the turmoil swirling within me. He offered a faint smile, his gaze probing into my own. I don't want to pressure you, he said, but it's important for you to understand that I care about you. His confession rendered me speechless, and for an instant, I was at a loss for words. Ethan, he shook his head, a gentle smile gracing his lips. It's perfectly fine. Words are unnecessary. I just wanted to make sure you know. The weight of his words surrounded me, and as the night progressed, I found myself reflecting on them repeatedly in my mind. As I finally nestled into bed, the house felt different, suffused with a warmth and richness, as though an invisible change had occurred. After many years, I finally allowed myself to contemplate the possibilities that the future may bring. The following day exuded a sense of uniqueness, yet the cause remained just out of reach. The house rested in its familiar stillness, yet an unexpected vitality hung in the air, as though a quiet metamorphosis had unfolded beneath the cloak of night. My eyes wandered to the clock more often than I cared to admit, a sense of unease growing within me as I awaited Ethan's arrival, rationalizing that my restlessness stemmed from the unfinished projects that hung over us. As his car smoothly entered the driveway, a whirlwind of feelings surged within me, teetering between excitement and anxiety. "Morning," he said, stepping inside with that easy, charming grin of his. He set down a humble box of tools and a bag of pastries on the kitchen counter, the gentle sound of their arrival resonating softly in the space. "Good morning," I replied, striving to keep my tone relaxed. "Are you ready to tackle the living room today?" he asked, pulling a croissant from the bag and offering it to me. "Of course," I responded, even though the thought of spending another day so close to him made my heart race. Our journey commenced with the living room shelves, where we carefully reorganized and reinforced them as necessary. The task progressed slowly and thoughtfully. Every movement carried a purpose, but it was the silence surrounding us that heightened the tangible tension lurking just below the surface. As I handed him a stack of books, our fingers brushed against one another. The encounter was fleeting, but it surged within me like a jolt of electricity. My breath catches in my throat. "Thank you," he whispered, his gaze lingering on mine for a moment longer than required. I quickly turned my attention to another pile of books, pretending to be engrossed, but the flush on my cheeks betrayed my true feelings. As the morning unfolded, the strain between us became ever more palpable. Every glance, every accidental touch felt magnified, as if we were both acutely aware of the space, or lack thereof, that separated us. While I dusted one of the higher shelves, I reached up, balancing precariously on my tiptoes. "Exercise caution," Ethan warned, stepping closer. I asserted my possession of it, yet the wavering balance of my stance revealed the truth behind my claims. Just when I was on the verge of finding my balance, he reached out, gently placing his hands on my waist to support me. "There," he murmured, his voice a soft, delicate whisper. The gentle heat of his hands and the unwavering nature of his touch enveloped her senses. I plunged downward, forging a divide between us, my heart pounding furiously in my chest. "Thank you," I murmured, steering clear of his eyes. "Any time," he replied, his tone light and breezy, but underneath, there was a subtle depth that suggested something deeper was at play. When the clock chimed noon, the living room shelves were complete, and Ethan suggested taking a moment to relax. "Shall we embark on an outdoor adventure?" he made a proposal. "The day is simply too beautiful to be trapped inside these walls." As I stepped onto the back patio, the sun's warmth wrapped around my skin like a comforting embrace. Ethan leaned against the railing, his gaze fixed on the far-off horizon. "You've been quiet today," he said, his voice calm and curious. I felt exhausted, I responded quickly, but the truth was far more complex. He nodded, but the look in his eyes betrayed a persistent uncertainty. As the afternoon wore on, the unspoken tension between us grew harder to ignore. Every glance carried profound significance. Each brush of his hand against mine felt intentional. As we moved back inside to face the final part of the living room, a heavy silence wrapped around us. "Is that truly you, Meredith?" Ethan's voice cut through the silence, breaking the calm with sudden intensity. "Indeed," I asked, stealing a quick look back at him. He hesitated, his gaze resolute yet tinged with uncertainty. "Did I unintentionally bring you any unease?" The question caught me off guard, rendering me briefly speechless. "No," I finally said, though my voice quivered, "for the reason that I hold within me." I paused, pivoting to meet his gaze completely. "You have not." The air around us was thick with tension, the unsaid words lingering like a weight above us. "What is it, then?" he asked, stepping closer. I shook my head, a tightness gripping my chest. Ethan, I'm utterly speechless. Why not give it a try, he whispered softly. I halted, my fingers gripping the edge of the table for support. Everything feels different with you, I confessed, my voice trembling with emotion. He edged in even closer, his presence a compelling force, both grounding and overwhelming in its intensity. How does it vary? I can't help but think about you, I admitted, the words spilling forth before I could catch them, filling me with dread. Ethan's expression softened as he reached out to take my hand, his touch gentle and careful. You have nothing to fear, he said, his voice steady and calm. You are not alone on this journey. The confession hung in the atmosphere, raw and unpolished. His hand wrapped around mine with a comforting warmth, and in his gaze, there was a serene assurance that spoke volumes. Ethan, I hesitated, my throat tight with emotion. It's all right, he whispered, his thumb gently brushing against my fingers. At this moment, silence speaks volumes. The gentle quality of his voice broke down a wall inside me, and before I could control my urges, I leaned in closer, my forehead softly resting against his chest. For a brief instant, we stood motionless, the silence enveloping us filled with unspoken understanding. As I finally pulled back, Ethan gently held my face, his eyes searching deeply into mine. Meredith, I care about you, he said, his voice a mix of strength and tenderness, perhaps more than I should, his words sending a tremor through my being, and I felt my breath catch as he leaned in just a fraction. I let him carry on, his lips softly grazing mine. The atmosphere seemed to have been siphoned away, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. The kiss started softly, with a touch of uncertainty, but quickly grew more passionate, as the weight of all our unspoken feelings converged in that one moment. As we finally parted, breathless and exhilarated, our foreheads lingered in a delicate touch, a moment frozen in time. This transforms the very essence of our reality. I whispered, my voice quivering, maybe it truly does. He responded, his thumb gently brushing against my cheek, and maybe that's not such a bad thing after all. I nodded, but the uncertainty lingered in the atmosphere. We will find a way, I whispered softly, and he promised to remain steadfast. The days following that kiss appeared to blur into a fog. Every meeting with Ethan held a deeper meaning, a silent recognition that we had stepped into a realm from which we could not turn back. The house felt alive in his presence, every corner filled with the memories we had crafted together. Yet, neither of us had the courage to bring it up. It was an extraordinary Saturday evening. The sun sank beneath the horizon while we remained in the dining room, now vibrant and alive with color and furnishings. The sunflower yellow walls exuded a soft warmth in the fading light, reflecting the quiet transformation taking place within me. It appears quite appealing, Ethan commented, his voice cutting through the warm tranquility. Indeed, I agreed, though my focus drifted beyond the boundaries of the room. He turned to me, his gaze steady and unflinching. You're truly one of a kind, he whispered softly, taken aback by the remark. My eyes widened in astonishment. How does it vary? With a hint of amusement, he noted, a delicate smile tugging at the edges of his lips. With a sense of joy, the sincerity in his words enveloped me like a wave, urging me to look away as a constriction tightened around my heart. As the evening progressed, we settled onto the porch, a bottle of wine resting comfortably between us. The soft breeze carried the delicate scent of salt water, as the soothing rhythm of the waves created a tranquil backdrop to the unmistakable tension that lingered between us. Is that really you, Meredith? Ethan's words cut through the fog of my thoughts, his voice sharp and sudden. He paused, his eyes searching deep into mine. The facade that everything stays unchanged can no longer be upheld. My breath hitched, and I set my glass aside, my fingers trembling with a sense of apprehension. I grasped the truth, I admitted, my voice barely lifting above a murmur. What is it that keeps you at arm's length? He asked, his tone gentle but firm. I inhaled deeply, the question cutting through my defenses. Truthfully, I confessed my fear. This, whatever it is, should not be happening. Who says? He countered, leaning forward. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words slipped away from me. I don't care what anyone thinks, he continued, his voice steady and resolute. The feelings I hold for you are sincere, Meredith, and I trust you can feel them too. The weight of his words wrapped around me, and I felt a tear making its way down my cheek. Text, I do, I said, my voice trembling, yet it does nothing to clarify the situation at all. Life is intricate, he whispered, reaching out his hand to mine. However, that does not mean we should hold back from pursuing what brings us happiness. I looked at him, my heart racing, coming to the realization that for far too long I had let fear dictate my choices, allowing sadness to trap me in the darkness of the past. Still, Ethan's words and his mere presence ignited a flicker of hope within me, suggesting that I might reach for something beyond my grasp. In a fleeting instant, I drew nearer, our lips connecting in a kiss that intertwined urgency with a tender sweetness. It transcended the simplicity of a kiss, it was an emancipation, a soft surrender to everything we had long held at a distance. His arms wrapped around me, pulling me closer, while everything else faded away into oblivion. As we finally parted, we were left breathless, our foreheads softly meeting in a fleeting moment of connection. This feels right, he whispered softly. Indeed, it does, I admitted, my voice trembling, as he led me across the threshold. The air grew heavy, the unspoken tension between us evolving into a raw and undeniable energy. The living room, illuminated by a gentle glow and filled with cherished furnishings, appeared to invite the anticipation of what lay ahead. Ethan's touch was tentative at first, his fingers lightly brushing against mine as he guided me toward the couch. Is that something you genuinely believe? He asked, his voice gentle and tinged with concern. Indeed, I spoke, that single word echoing with a certainty I hadn't felt in a long time. The following moments unfolded with a careful elegance, devoid of rush or carelessness. Every movement revealed a deliberate elegance, infused with deep emotion. His hands moved gently across the contours of my face, his touch imbued with a profound sense of reverence, as though he were etching every detail into his memory. When his lips met mine again, a wave of intensity washed over me, leaving me completely breathless. The barriers that once kept us apart fell away, and in that instant, I felt a deep surge of life that had been absent from my existence for far too long. The instant surpassed the boundaries of the tangible world. It was deeply moving, a connection that delved into realms I had never envisioned. In the quiet that ensued, we stood together, surrounded by the gentle, rhythmic whispers of the ocean in the distance. Ethan's arm wrapped around me, his touch a calming presence, steady and comforting. How are you holding up? He asked softly, his gaze filled with concern. I declared, as I leaned my head against his chest. For the first time in a long while, I genuinely am. His hand brushed through my hair, and I felt the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against my cheek. The night revealed itself as a crucial turning point, a moment when everything started to shift. However, with that shift came a quiet unease, a realization that the path ahead would be fraught with obstacles. What happens next? I asked, my voice breaking the silence. Ethan took a moment, letting the silence fill the air before he finally spoke. Each day unfolds before us, he noted, and we journey through it side by side. I nodded, discovering a glimmer of comfort in his words. As the hours passed, I reflected on the journey I had embarked upon, the place that once radiated an aura of abandonment now overflowed with promise. In Ethan, I discovered a subtle resilience and a steadfast presence that shed light on a shadow I had not even realized I was facing. As the first rays of sunlight softly streamed through the curtains, a delicate whisper of hope awakened within me, hinting that maybe, just maybe, I could embrace this new chapter of my life. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, enveloping the room in a tender, warm radiance. As I awoke from my slumber on the couch, I discovered Ethan's arms wrapped around me, his breath a soothing and steady rhythm beside me. In a brief instant, I caught sight of him, letting the peaceful calm of the morning wash over me. Years had passed since I experienced such a profound sense of comfort. The ache of solitude that had defined my life since Paul's departure now seemed like a distant echo, replaced by a feeling I never thought would resurface. With a sense of expectation, Ethan stirred, his eyes fluttering open, and a soft smile appeared on his lips. "Morning," he said, his voice a gentle whisper, imbued with a comforting warmth. "Good morning," I responded, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. We remained in that moment, both of us reluctant to disrupt the quiet or move from our serene pause. We were profoundly conscious of the fragility of this moment, recognizing that to withdraw would entail facing the harsh truth of what lay ahead. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "What emotions are you experiencing today?" I took a deep breath, contemplating his question. In a hushed tone, I revealed my trepidation, yet brimming with optimism. He tilted his head slightly, his thumb brushing gently against my arm. "I feel the same way," he responded. The conversation was simple, yet it carried the deep weight of everything we were experiencing. With the sun climbing higher in the sky, we made our way into the kitchen. Ethan began brewing coffee as I gathered the bread and eggs, our movements intertwining in a rhythm of ease and familiarity. It was as though we had performed this ritual countless times before, as we took our seats at the table. A silent tension hung in the atmosphere, a tangible hint of the discussion that lay ahead. "What happens next?" I asked, breaking the silence. Ethan set his coffee mug down on the table, his gaze steady and unyielding. He expressed his desire clearly. "I long for us, yet I recognize that the journey forward will be filled with obstacles." I tilted my head, a heaviness resting in my heart. "There is a great deal to contemplate," I noted. He recognized the reality of the situation, yet conveyed his willingness to move forward at a measured pace. "Would you be interested in following suit?" His words acted as a lifeline, grounding me in the midst of the chaotic uncertainty surrounding me. The days that followed revealed a strange mix of joy and doubt. Ethan stayed with me over the weekend, helping out with different small projects around the house. His laughter and easygoing presence filled the space with a comforting warmth. As the sun sank lower on Sunday evening, the heaviness of reality began to envelop the scene. Ethan was preparing to leave for work the next morning, and the house would once again fall into a silence that felt profoundly empty. "I'll come back next weekend," he said, standing by the door, his bag casually slung over his shoulder. I expressed to him that it wasn't necessary, yet a part of me longed for him to take that action. With unwavering determination, he responded, "I want to. I'll ensure to reach out every night, if that suits you." "It's more than all right," I murmured, my voice trembling. As he leaned in to kiss me goodbye, the weight of the moment surrounded me, elevating it beyond a simple farewell. It was a promise, a quiet testament to the connection we held. As his car pulled away from the driveway, the house once again enveloped itself in a feeling of emptiness, but this time, it was tinged with a sense of impermanence. Ethan fulfilled his promise. Every night, he would call, his voice a steady presence in the quiet of the evening. We exchanged thoughts on a myriad of topics, from our careers to fond recollections of Paul, and even the most mundane aspects of our meals. In the weeks that ensued, he grasped every chance to visit, and with each meeting, our connection grew stronger. As we worked side by side on the house, laughter and warmth filled the air, and I began to see it as more than just a remnant of history. The path was fraught with obstacles. There were moments of doubt, periods when the weight of our choices felt impossibly burdensome. Each time, Ethan remained steadfast, unwavering, and determined. One evening, while we relaxed on the porch, the sun sank low on the horizon, enveloping us in a gentle, warm light. I faced him, my heart overflowing with appreciation. "Thank you," I whispered softly. "What is the aim?" he asked, a look of confusion shadowing his features. "Thank you for reminding me that life goes on even after loss," I said, my voice trembling, for reigniting the flame of existence within me once again. He reached out, his fingers weaving together with mine. He expressed it clearly, "You've reciprocated in kind." As the weeks turned into months, our connection deepened, and I found liberation in letting go of the guilt and fear that had once held me captive. The house, once shrouded in sadness, had evolved into a haven of rebirth, a space where I could dream of what lies ahead instead of clinging to the fragments of what once was. As the sun sank beneath the horizon, bathing the room in a warm glow, Ethan turned to me, his expression serious, following the conclusion of yet another project. He noted that this house possesses a distinct aura now. Indeed, I agreed, taking in the room we had just finished painting. It is because of you, he declared, his voice filled with a serene conviction, you have brought it back to life. Tears welled in my eyes while a smile spread across my face, my heart overflowing with emotion. We achieved that together, I noted, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in shades of orange and pink. A peaceful calm surrounded me. The path before us was still unfolding, but for the first time in many years, a newfound courage stirred within me regarding the future that awaited. With Ethan by my side, I felt a steadfast assurance that we could face any obstacle that approached us. Together,